Now we come to the book of Ruth. We know that Ruth was a righteous woman. She was a virtuous woman. She was really a good woman, hardworking, having a really good character. And she was obedient to her mother-in-law. She really loved her. The greatest of all things was that she loved the God of Naomi and her former husband who had died, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we see that Naomi advised her to work in a certain fashion. Well, that was the idea of Naomi. She somehow wanted to ensure 100% success, and she thought this would be the ideal way. Ruth accepted her ideas and said, well, I would be doing as according to what you say. And in the third chapter of Ruth, we read of the whole account. Naomi intended good for her because Ruth was extremely good to her. She wanted to get her married. And as according to the custom in Israel, the closest relative was to perform his responsibility and duty towards her. Boaz was a rich and influential person. Ruth was working in his field. And Naomi said, is not Boaz of our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast? Behold, he winnoweth barley tonight in the threshing floor. Wash thyself, therefore, and anoint thee, and put thy raiment upon thee, and get thee down to the floor, but make not thyself known unto the man, until he shall have done eating and drinking. And it shall be, when he lieth down, that thou shalt mark the place where he shall lie, and thou shalt go in and uncover his feet, and lay thee down, and he will tell thee what thou shalt do. And she said unto her, all that thou sayest unto me I will do. And she did accordingly. Now, it could have turned even against her, because when Boaz got away, he could have been extremely angry with this woman who behaved this way with him. But instead, of course, it was grace of God, and so he was kind towards her. He took in consideration her virtuousness, her good qualities, that she was not running lustily after young men, whether poor or rich. She had shown herself extremely dedicated towards her mother-in-law, even towards her work while working in the field of Boaz. He said, well, there's someone who is even a more closer relative than I am. So I'll first ask him. If he is ready to fulfill his responsibility, well and fine. If not, then I will be performing the duties or responsibility of a close relative towards thee. And we see later on that because the other relative, who was a more closer relative, rejected to perform his duties, Boaz did take Ruth as his wife, and then Ruth gave birth to a child who was named Obed, and the Lord God let him be the ancestor of Yeshua the Messiah. Now what Ruth did and what was suggested to her, what was advised to her by Naomi, cannot be said to be right. And simply, it could have been that it was very simple for Naomi to herself go and speak about Ruth's marriage. It would have been extremely simple for Naomi to go and speak to Boaz about fulfilling his duties, obligations, or responsibilities of a close relative towards Ruth. That would have been more normal and acceptable. So also it would have been completely righteous. And of course the Lord God would have been merciful unto Ruth for her faith in him, and would have given favor in the heart and mind of Boaz for her, and he would have even then got her married. Actually, Naomi had a fleshly kind of thinking, and she wanted to ensure success, and she thought this was the best way of ensuring success. God doesn't approve of what all human beings think and say and do. Nevertheless, God gives favor unto his very own and even uses their shortcomings, their mistakes, their sins, something that is not completely in accordance to his will and wish and ways, yet he allows his very own to have favor, gives them success, even blesses them. But that doesn't mean he approves of what all they think and say and do. Now it is like, for example, a child putting some zigzag lines on the canvas, some spots here and some spots there, which looks ugly. But if the same canvas is given to a master artist, he uses it all in such a fabulous way to create a picture that is a perfect masterpiece. God is the greatest expert. He uses the mistakes, the wrongdoings, the sins of his very own to fulfill a big plan, to make something of a grand scale, even to bless his very own. But that doesn't mean that he supports or approves of their mistakes, wrongdoings, or sins. They will surely face the consequences for all of them on the day of judgment.